welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to restore a small marble tray. Not a usual thing, not something we're particularly practiced at, but the principles are the same. It needs gluing up so it's strong. We need to preserve its original antique look because it's quite a valuable piece. Now let me show you. Here we have our very delicate broken tray. Now it doesn't hold the value it once had. This would have been a couple of £1,000 in its prime, but it has these staples underneath where it's been repaired. And I mean, they had a charm for it. I like these staples, but ultimately at the moment it's just a bit of a wobbly broken mess. Now I'm going to glue this together using araldite, which is a quick drying clear resin. I want as little of that araldite on show as is possible. So the idea is get a solid flat base, and for that I'm using a piece of old snooker table slate, wax it so the araldite doesn't stick to that, put the araldite in between the cracks on our tray, put it on our flat waxed base, weigh it down, leave it to set. Now the araldite says 5 minutes, we're going to give it 5 hours because we want it to be solid. There's nothing worse than gluing something twice. Doesn't work as well. Get it right first time, preparation is everything. So we're going to mix up our araldite. We know this goes together quite nice. Put our weight on it, on our bed, and let that dry. Fingers crossed we're going to be left with some very fine cracks which we'll fill with coloured waxes to help blend them in a bit. We're not going to lose them completely, but we're not expected to. Just a nice little project. Now the important thing when gluing something up is preparation. If you've got a resin that's going to dry quickly and you've got limited time to put this thing together, you don't want to be messing about looking for things, trying to find things. Think the job through from start to finish. And for me on this, wax the base of the slate so that it doesn't stick to the slate. Have a piece of wood ready, which fits on top of our tray. Have some weights ready to hold it down in place, and have some wipes ready to clean off the excess. It's that simple. So we start by waxing our slate base. The resin we're using will stick anything to anything. And if we stick it straight on this slate, it will be as attached to the slate as it is to itself. Trying to prise that off is likely to cause it to break, and re-gluing something up twice just makes it weaker. Right then, time to use the resin, which means it's time for the gloves. Now the resins we use, it's basically an araldite, 50-50 mix. And from this point we have 5 minutes before this sets hot solid. Now I'd rather put too much in here and not use it than get halfway through gluing the thing up and not having enough. Go. Mix this together. These extra large gloves aren't very extra large, are they? Dexterity back. Okay, mix our resin together. The clock is ticking. Now I'm going to be quite liberal with how I put this on now. But what I'd like to do is put it on in a way that when it's squashed together, it comes out through the top more than it does through the bottom, so I can wipe it off. And I'm always a firm fan of putting way too much glue or resin on a joint when you're gluing it up, and taking off the excess than not having enough. Oh, it's come apart. Oh, the joys. So I need to get that staple back in now. Okay, now sit that on our flat bed. Push out the excess. You can see it's all squidging out. I'm hoping we'll see the same now when I squash this together. Again, I don't think you can have too much. I'd rather put too much on and not have enough. Squish this in. Check all the lines are nice and accurate. Sort of manipulate it into place. Okay, then we take off the excess. And while I'm just cleaning this off, if I could just ask you to subscribe to our channel. Obviously, jobs like this with a camera on you adds a certain amount of pressure. And to know that the videos are appreciated by having subscribers, it means a lot to us. It doesn't cost anything, it takes a second, but it does make a big difference to us, so if you wouldn't mind. Right, we've got our resin in, we've got the excess cleaned off, and final thing, flat piece of timber. Ooh, I better wax that just in case. To hold our surface flat, I'll put a little groove in so I can put our weight on. The weight, so I put a little groove in our timber so I can put the weight on. The weight is from the inside of a grandfather clock. Give that a final squish. And at this point, just in case I've got big blobs of this arrowlight underneath holding it to the slate, I'll give it a little twist. Final squish. And then I'll leave this to set. As I say, it's supposed to take 5 minutes. We're going to give it 5 hours. We want this to be as like a stone as possible. And then we'll come back to it and we'll start working on the finishing. Hello everybody and welcome back. I don't know if I'm welcoming you back, it depends how we edit this, whether we're welcoming you back or not. When I glued this up, I said I was going to leave it for 5 hours, even though it says on the tin it only needs 5 minutes to set. It's actually been well over 5 days. We've been so busy in the workshop, it's just sat around getting filthy and dusty, but it's really stuck. I mean, look, that's now it's stuck solid, which is great because I know that my resin holding the marble tray together is good, but obviously I waxed this slate, so I suspect that, or I hope, I'll pull this off and this will come off the slate in one piece. Sadly, there's only one way to find out, and that's just to try and prise the thing off. Oh, that is beautiful. I mean, we've got big blobs of resin here that I'm now going to have to sand off. But in terms of having a solid tray, it's actually worked. Okay, so now we've got a solid tray and it's nice and flat. The next stage is to sand it smooth, take any excess off and check I'm not going to damage any of the original look of the tray. Right, sandpaper. So I'm going to use a 320 grit paper and see if it's enough to take off the resin that we've glued this together with the araldite, at the same time leaving a nice patina on the tray.
Tell you what though, that is repaired nicely.
Sit level.
It's hard to say, my workbench isn't level. And it's still got big clumps of araldite underneath here we need to get off. Should probably clean the bottom before we start cleaning the top. Yeah, but it was a bit of araldite coming off. I thought we'd broken the tray again. There's no movement in it. Sounds like it though, doesn't it?
Sounds like when you tap a plate to see if it's...
No. Right, coarser sandpaper. Going to take some elbow grease. Now, whether our tray is alabaster or marble, and I'm going with alabaster, what I've done now is sanded all the little imperfections out. Now there are still ditches and grooves and it's not perfect, but it's been broken before, it's got the staples in. To make it perfect, well, I don't think it's what the brief was. When you sand anything like this, you're left with fine scratches on. Then use a car polishing compound, a white one, on a cloth, and this will take out any imperfections. As a little bit of a tweak, I've put a little bit of brown wax on my cloth and let it dry. And when that rubs in, that will add a bit of depth and colour to this. But I suspect, even when we get the fine scratches out of the sandpaper, we will still need to add a little bit more wax afterwards. You see the difference there? Ooh. So it's just basically give it a polish. Taking out any imperfections and ground it down a bit and rubbed in a bit of dirt to give it some age. Okay, give it all a polish over. Going to put clear wax over the whole thing, and I think that is mission accomplished. Beautiful little decorative object. Just put back in one piece. It's that simple. It's still got a great bit of character and history and story to it. Value is a difficult one. Gonna have to do a bit of research and speak to tatters about that. Wax. I am very happy with that. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Solid. Clean, solid, got its character, still looks old, still looks antique. Yeah, straight on the van for this one. Let's get to this chair. I'll switch that off, I think we're wasting valuable storage space for this sanding bollocks.